Hey guys, welcome back. In this video, we're going to be going over we're going to be going over lambda expressions. So we went over anonymous inner classes in the previous video, and we've seen that they're very useful when you want to do something very simple like this. Now, a lambda expression is very similar, except the syntax is a little less verbose, so it's a little easier to write. The rule is, whenever you have an interface, such as this, with only one abstract method, then you can use a lambda expression. So here we have an interface with one abstract method called do something, and it has this default method, but this isn't really abstract because we're providing a definition for it that'll be executed by default. So we can use a lambda expression for this interface. To do this, all we do is we do manager.accept, and now let me show you the syntax. It looks a little strange when you first see it, but it's very nice. So what this is saying is that it's going to go to the only abstract method, or the only abstract method that it can find inside of this activity client interface, and it's just going to kind of wrap all of this syntax it's just going to wrap this all for us inside of these curly braces and then this weird pointer, or not pointer, but like this weird arrow thing. So let's just run this, and then I'll explain this in a little more detail. So I'm going to comment out this guy. I'm going to run it, and just to prove that it works, we see that it does work. So what this is doing is it's doing manager.accept, right? Well, accept we need to pass in an activity client. We need to pass in an activity client into the accept method, and then the accept method calls item.doSomething. Well, it doesn't seem like we're passing in any activity client in this lambda expression. So what this is doing is it's basically just taking this syntax and wrapping it into this syntax. Now, okay, so why do we need these parentheses? Well, suppose that our doSomething method required a parameter, int value. So let's just, no, I don't want to edit it here. I want to edit it inside the actual interface, int value. So it's going to require something. We're just going to pass in 0 for all of these guys. And now, okay, let me comment all of these guys out. Now what we're going to do is we can say val. So what's happening is that, one second. Alright. So what's going on is we're going to do manager.accept, and then it's just going to go into our activity client and then pass in a value of 0. So what this is doing in essence then is you can like let me just run it actually. So yeah, so we see that this is a lambda expression with value 0. So let me actually uncomment this guy out to demonstrate more clearly what this is doing. This is the same thing as doing manager.accept new activity client, and you see that we're being given this int value inside of our doSomething method, inside of our doSomething abstract method that's inside the activity client interface. Similarly, we're being given the same value, except it's wrapped inside these parentheses, and we don't need the type before the value. We just need the value inside the parentheses, and then we can do whatever we want with the lambda expression. This is particularly useful, or I guess lambda expressions are particularly useful when you're working with asynchronous code. For example, you want to fetch something off the internet, and like say you have maybe like a GUI, a graphical user interface, like some screen where the user is selecting, they put in their username, they put in their password, and then they click login. Well, when they hit login, you don't want your program to freeze while it's waiting for your web server to respond with some input. You want to maybe show like a progress bar or something, and you want everything to still be functional. Well, in order to do that, you need to basically use something called a thread. We're going to get to that in more detail in the later videos. But in order to know when you actually have, when like the web server has finally returned content to you, you use these interfaces, and they're simplified further by these lambda expressions. Alright, we're going to be making use of these, or we're going to be using these more thoroughly when we start talking about threads in asynchronous code, but it's good to just have a general idea of how these work beforehand. Alright, So I'll see you guys in the next letter.